Well, maybe before I answer the two questions, let me say thank you so much for the invitation that was extended to me to come to this lovely country, China. I love it. I like China. I've been here many times, but I've never felt tired when I'm told you're welcome to China. So we dropped in today after flying for nearly 13 hours from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania to this place. So thanks for the invitation. Now, coming to the two questions raised. Well, first let me say, as nations, as people, I think it's something good when you encounter a problem between a person and another person, a nation and another nation, an institution with another institution. The best way forward is nothing else but sitting down together, discussing the issue, reaching an amicable solution to whatever may have caused that problem. So I think if China thinks the best way is to negotiate, to talk with USA on what has cropped up in the recent days, I personally think it's very, very good. It's a good example, actually, even for other countries. It's no good at all. If you think a solution when you encounter a crisis like that is fighting, you see, because at the end of the day, nobody will be the winner. See, because whatever going to happen is going to affect other people as well, not only the two sides. So I think it's a gentleman's way of solving problems. And I think it's something that should be emulated also by other nations so that we live in peace between one and another. Yes, the second question is an interesting one in the sense that it's true because China is a huge country. Economically, it's a giant. Second economy in the world. So now, China negotiating between itself and let's say Tanzania. Okay, sizable in size, but economically still very, very, very small. So one indeed may think these parties are not equal. They cannot negotiate because one is too big and the other one appears to be too small economically and other things. But I think the big issue here is not what we talk about, the size of the country. No. It's the legal position of each nation. Each nation, small or big, is a nation that is there because it's recognized internationally by the international bodies that it is a nation. And that's why we have some of them very small islands. You wouldn't imagine how China can go and sit down and try and negotiate with some of these small countries in terms of size. For that matter, we can even include Japan. It's just a small country, but the issue is not the size. The issue is the international recognition that each one of these countries has. And so when you negotiate, you're negotiating first because of that position, but two, with regard to China's approach. See, I have high respect for Xi Jinping, the president, because he has come up with a philosophy which is not easy for someone to see how he came about with this kind of philosophy. That we nations are equal. That when I go to negotiate with another country, I want to do it on a basis of a win-win situation. Okay? So at the end of the day, he doesn't lose, I don't lose, in spite of my small size or whatever. So it's not everybody would probably want to look at it from that angle. But President Xi Jinping, and I fully think he's on the right track, and I think he should be supported in the philosophy that he has, so that we all live as equal nations, we all benefit from each other, and in so doing, we'll be able to solve even big problems together because we respect each other regardless of the other little difference that may exist. Let me start with the second one because it's nice. It's a nice question, you see. Yes. First, let me say thanks for the cooperation between this province and Tanzania, Chongqing and Tanzania, in agriculture. Okay. And it has already begun to show or pave the way to the ordinary farmers in our country. That project is in a region which is one of the biggest producers, particularly of rice, paddy. Okay? And that's why that project, assisted by China, essentially is around paddy or rice production. And we've seen an increase in productivity. You see, because when we do farming in our local way, invariably the productivity is very low. But ever since we began that project, people have come to understand that it is indeed something very good. Yield is very high now. So I think it's an excellent cooperation, and I still believe we need to do more on that one. Now, of course, he says, where else should we move next? First, I would say, yes, we have begun, but we've not gone far. That country is big. It's about 1 million square kilometers. And essentially, Tanzania is an agricultural country. Okay? So what we have actually been able to achieve through relations with this province in agriculture, I think needs now to be sort of expanded. We want to see if that project can now cover a much wider country, because we have all these good places where rice is also cultivated. So my first request would be to see the possibility now of expanding that project to other areas. 2, Tanzania is essentially an agricultural country. Our people depend on agriculture for livelihood, but also for making living. So I was thinking that now that we have that cooperation, and then you might know also one of the agricultural universities that we have, actually the only one, is also involved in that project. I was thinking that we could think of probably together with the Sokoine University, see if we can create another college of agriculture outside the University of Sokoine. Why am I saying this? You see, Morogoro University, the Sokoine University, is on the eastern part of Tanzania, okay? It's almost bordering the coast of Tanzania. But we have the mainland, where we have a lot of these opportunities. But we all have to depend on this particular university in order to train all these agricultural extension service officers. So it would be very good if through this kind of partnership, we can also think of building another school in the form of a college, not necessarily university, just a college on agriculture. It will be under the Sokoine University, but centered somewhere within the mainland area, so that we can also create another hub of trainees in agriculture and other things like that. That would have been my really honest sort of request that would probably be carried under the current situation. Perfect. I think this is a very good and pertinent issue, I think, that we should all look at. I come from Tanzania, I come from Africa, you see. I've been here so many times attending these conferences and the other conferences as well. And I've come to learn also that the initiative under President Xi Jinping initially was intended for the Silk Road, the old Silk Road that existed in the previous years. And I think China has done very well on that one. Sort of raise the consciousness, raise the need for, doing things together. So I think this is why he decided to expand this initiative to the whole world, Africa inclusive. Okay? Now, why I think it has a big impact. First, I took note of the meeting that took place here in April. See, the International Forum on Belt and Road Initiative. You see, you can see in 1927, in 2017, only about 20 heads of state attended. But this April meeting, we had 37 of them. What does that mean? It simply means the various leaders from various countries are slowly beginning to see and understand what China is up to. And that was very, very important meeting. Okay? Tanzania, of course, took part. So you can see the impact of what China is doing is slowly now getting out of China, going to other parts of the world, which I think is significant and very, very important. Now, as I said, I come from the continent of Africa. Look at Africa, huge continent, but so unconnected, poorly connected. There are efforts between each country and another country, but it's not much. Okay? Now, under the BRI, what I'm saying is possible for the continent of Africa if we decide to join hands together under the AU, okay, and China. We could probably do a wonderful BRI initiative that would open up Africa as a continent among themselves, but more importantly, because of the ports and the international airports that will be created, by so doing also be opening the doors to also the international community. So it's not a useless exercise that is being undertaken by China when it comes to connectivity. It's a wonderful, a good thing that I think each one of us should be able to see the need and see the sense, so that we all work together to see how that can be achieved. I know what he's looking for. Just as I said at the beginning, President Xi Jinping is very clear on this one. See? If we go by the principle of equality, okay, if we all think it's important to have a common destiny, okay, if we all believe win-win system is the best system in this world, then the whole issue of protection in relation to a certain particular item and whatnot and what is just nonsense. See, because it doesn't augur well with the ideas that I'm seeing cropping up in China. Okay? So, my suggestion would be, let's sit down and talk about some of these issues. It's for the common good. It's for the good of everybody. You see? You may think you are doing it in order to protect your nation. But don't forget, if you are talking about USA, you are talking about China, you are talking about some of these other huge countries, they have a big impact on the global worldwide. Okay? And invariably, the sufferers will be these poor countries who are going to be the victims of whatever is the quarrel between the huge or big countries. So that's why I'm saying, yes, there could crop up things of that nature, but in as much as possible, we should hurriedly see how we can quickly grab that issue, bring it on the table, talk about it, discuss it, and if possible, remove some of those constraints so that the connectivity spirit that is currently being drawn from China spreads the wings all over. But the basis is still the same: equality, respect between each nation, love for each nation. So at the end of it, really, would be living in a wonderful world. So, but if you continue with that kind of approach, brother, there is no winner in that war. No one. We are going to suffer, and not only him or her, but everyone, because of the global connection that we have. Maybe I start with the second one. Okay. As I said, I come from Tanzania. Good enough, I was the Prime Minister until 2015. That's when I moved out of the system. So I have a fairly good idea of what China has contributed to Tanzania. So as you correctly pointed out by the question, due to our good relations between China and Tanzania, a long history of good friendship, we've seen what Tanzania has benefited from this relationship. You can go back way back. Look at the Tazara, which was constructed by China during the time when China was not what it is today. But they did it way back in the 1960s. Okay? But currently, if you look at the construction that is going on in the country, many of these companies are from China, doing all the construction, roads, bridges, and whatnot, mostly from China. See? Even the current rehabilitation that's being done at the port of Dar es Salaam is under the company of China. We built the pipeline all the way from the southern part of Tanzania to Dar es Salaam. Again, it was under the Chinese company. So we have good examples that we can enumerate. But the totality of these good relations is that if you talk to even an ordinary Tanzanian with regard to what has been done, he will tell you it's a result of the good friendship between these two countries. They appreciate. Look at what has gone into the health sector. The number of doctors that have been working in Tanzania, you know, on voluntary basis. They're covered, they're almost everywhere in that country, you see, in big hospitals. And the job they're doing is good. So you ask any Tanzanian who has been to say, yes, I was treated by a Chinese doctor. I didn't know Chinese, but I was able to talk through somebody else, and now I'm feeling all right. So there is an appreciation from Tanzania people, so long as you are picking a thing that she or he also understands. So it's something that cannot be denied. But when you look at it also nationally, currently China is #1 investor in Tanzania. You look at the direct foreign investment, you look at the investment that he has put in that country, it's tremendous, you see. So as a Tanzanian, but more so somebody who has been in the government for quite a number of years, I don't think that we have a problem in understanding the good intentions of China and Tanzania. My only caution is that on the part of Tanzania, okay, we have also got to be prepared. You see, when you get people assisting you, you also have got to reciprocate, do something so that even if he leaves, you will be able to sustain that particular project. They come for negotiations. China will do the best to negotiate, but you must also get ready to make sure you also negotiate effectively so that you come to the level where win-win principle, you see, is a factor that is enjoyed by both sides. So, Madam, I thank you for that question, but I think I've answered it with a bit of some emotions because I happen to know quite a good number of things that China has been doing in that country. Well, it depends on who is looking at the problem, okay? But all that I would say is, first, yes, China has invested in Africa, okay? Many countries have got a number of projects. You look at Ethiopia, you look at Djibouti, you look at Kenya, you look at Tanzania, you look at Ghana and other countries. There are a lot of activities now going on, okay? Now, partly it's a question of interpretation. It's an interpretation issue. When a Chinese company comes to Tanzania, invests, let's say, in a textile mill or beef processing company, you see, the thing that you clearly see is that we are lucky, at least we have got some young men employed in those particular factories. So to us, where we have a big problem of unemployment, then you tend to fill the gap through some of these activities that China is undergoing, okay? You look at the construction of roads, look at the construction of ports, airports and things. You see, during the construction period, yes, we'll have a number of people from China, but the majority of them will still be Tanzanians because most of the job will be done by the locals. And don't forget, in the case of Tanzania, we have the law that guides us also. So when a company comes from China, not that we will allow all friends from China to come and do every job. No. We have got specifications. For this job, you're allowed to bring in this particular level and this one and this one and this one. For the rest, we can also provide that technology of manpower to do that job. So with us, it's very well guided. Now, the question that you posed, that's why I said, well, it depends what you are looking for and where you are looking for, okay? Because I've also been seeing that in papers and whatnot. I have a good case of Jamaica. Recently, I was reading, I think, something on Zambia. Now, I wouldn't like to talk about some of them. I've not been there. I've never talked to the Zambians themselves. I've never talked to the Jamaicans themselves. But take it from me, madam. What China is doing now is posing a big challenge to some of the big countries. There is a fear from some of them that China is expanding, is growing so fast, okay? To the extent that, you see, sometimes you've got to chip in now with the other things, sort of drag back the effort that China is doing. So, but if you want to do that, easy. Just create stories and other things negatively, and then say, yes, I think it's true. Yes, it is true. But come and ask we, the beneficiaries. We'll tell you what we are actually benefiting. But even if that is true, to me, it's not a big issue. The respective countries, under the principle of win-win principle, you can still sit down and say, sorry, this contract, I think, is not favorable on our part. We will think we can change it a little bit, add 1, 2, 3, so that we come to the same level. You benefit, I also benefit. So it is still a matter that can be easily dealt with. But I know China, one of the challenges that China is facing now, it's growing too fast economically, and it's bound to get a lot of enemies worldwide. You know, they tend to throw mudslinging to almost everything. And I would say, no, that's not correct. That's not nice. If there is a problem, the principle is very clear. Sit down, talk afresh, make amendments to whatever is there, and then we go ahead. Okay, let me see if I can answer just one answer instead of separating. You see, connectivity relates to people-to-people connectivity. I'm sure you know that. But infrastructure is even more fundamental. And with the infrastructure, you also look at the power supply as a component of that, building of roads, railways, bridges, and whatnot. Okay, but policies are also involved. Financing is also part of it. So it's quite a wide range when you talk about connectivity. Now, specifically in relation to your question, actually what you're actually asking is that, is Tanzania prepared? Are you ready now that we have this facility in China? We'll be pushing huge numbers of containers to your country. Are you ready for this particular venture in the principle of connectivity between China and it's a port issue, but it's also beyond that. Okay? Well, the good thing about it is that it's something that can easily be looked at by both sides. China on the one hand, Tanzania on the other. Okay? I cannot compare Tanzania with China. No. Definitely the gap is quite big. But it's not true that there isn't much that we can also do in order to benefit from this particular transaction. So currently, what we are looking at is the improvement of ports along the coast of Dar es Salaam, Mtwara, Tanga. Okay? Now, the rehabilitation that is taking place on the Dar es Salaam port is being done by a Chinese company. Good enough. So within that framework, we expect that once that project is completed, we will be able to get more ships coming into the harbor, but more significantly, vessels will also be able to carry more tonnage than what they are now currently doing. So we believe what is taking place here, the development which is going on here, and the aspect of connecting whatever you are doing with the Tanzania, to me, it's a welcome idea. Okay, it's going to add value to the ports, to the country as well. So it will be a first step towards a second, and a third, and a fourth. So there'll be many steps along that area. We are still seriously looking also at the other ports, particularly the Tanga port, which is in the north of Dar es Salaam. Okay, why? It's because we can shift part of the vessels to that port, and from there you can now roll the tonnages that you have brought into the country through that particular route. But we had initially also developed a project on the possibility of building another port in Bagamoyo. Okay, so what the government has done has decided first to look at it more critically and see how and where we can probably come to an understanding between China and Tanzania before we embark on that one. Because we are seeing Tanzania, because we are surrounded by 8, 9 landlocked countries. We are currently building a railway line, the standard gauge railway line, from Dar es Salaam all the way to the other side of the country, joining the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, etc. So more tonnages of products will be coming from that area to Dar es Salaam. So the need for expansion is there. But there is also need and the possibility of having another new port in any part of the coast that we have. So it's a welcome venture, it's a good idea, and I'm sure it connects us very well.